The cabin is already half full when she steps into the aisle. No urgency, no reaction, just a calm walk with a simple carry-on. A flight attendant pauses her, not with confusion, but with judgment. Her eyes scan the woman's coat, her shoes, her bag. "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right section?" the attendant asks loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. A few heads turn, then whispers begin. The woman checks her boarding pass once, then again, calmly. "It's economy," she says softly. The attendant doesn't move. Instead, she signals to a gate supervisor already watching from the front. The message is clear without being spoken. She doesn't belong here. Passengers start shifting uncomfortably. Some smile, some look away. The supervisor arrives, glances at her ticket, then at her appearance. "Ma'am, we may need you to step aside. There seems to be an issue with your seat assignment." No apology, no uncertainty, just assumption. The woman doesn't argue, she simply observes. Like she is measuring something no one else can see yet. And in that silence, something feels off. Because she is not reacting like someone who is confused. She is reacting like someone who is deciding how far this is going to be allowed to go. They chose the wrong person, they just didn't know it yet. The boarding gate is crowded, slightly noisy, the way airports always are when people are tired but pretending not to be. Announcements echo overhead. Rolling suitcases click against the floor in uneven rhythm. Families adjust bags. Business travelers check watches. Everything feels ordinary until she appears. She is not rushing, not looking around for attention, just walking forward with a small, simple carry-on bag held at her side. Plain coat, neutral colors, no visible luxury, nothing that stands out in a place where appearance often decides how people are treated before words ever begin. At the boarding line, she stops and joins without hesitation. A flight attendant near the gate notices her almost immediately, not because she is late, but because she doesn't look like the others in the premium boarding group nearby. The attendant's eyes move quickly, too quickly. Her gaze lands on the woman's coat, then her shoes, then the small bag, a brief pause, then a decision is made, not spoken, but visible. "Ma'am," the attendant says, stepping slightly into her path. The tone is polite on the surface. Controlled, but firm in a way that does not invite explanation. The woman looks up calmly. "Yes," the attendant tilts her head, scanning the boarding pass without fully taking it yet. "You're in this line?" It is not a real question, it already carries doubt. The woman gently extends her boarding pass. No hesitation, no emotion. The attendant takes it, glances once, then again, slower this time, as if searching for something that justifies her first impression. Behind them, passengers begin to slow down, watching casually at first, then more carefully. The attendant steps slightly aside and signals to a gate supervisor. A man in a uniform near the counter looks up immediately, already reading the situation before reaching them. This is not the first time he has seen something like this, and that is exactly what makes it worse. He walks over. The attendant speaks first, low but clear. "She's claiming this seat, but I'm not sure there's a match in the system." The woman doesn't interrupt. She simply stands still, holding her boarding pass loosely between her fingers. The supervisor takes it, checks the screen, once, then again. A small pause stretches longer than necessary. Behind them, a passenger coughs awkwardly. Someone shifts their bag. The line inches forward, but nobody is moving past her anymore. She has become the pause in the system. The supervisor finally speaks. "Ma'am, this seat is economy, yes." She nods, "Yes." Another pause. His eyes flick briefly to her appearance again, then back to the screen, as if trying to reconcile two things that do not match in his mind. "Are you certain you're on the correct flight?" It is phrased carefully, but the implication is already loud enough. A few passengers now openly look. One woman whispers to the person beside her. Another man glances at the boarding pass from a distance, as if trying to confirm what mistake might be unfolding. The woman in the coat does not react to any of it. She simply answers, "Yes, I am." No extra words, no defense, no irritation. That calmness should have ended the moment. Instead, it makes it heavier. The supervisor exhales slightly, shifting his stance. We may need to verify this further before you proceed. He says it like procedure. But it is not procedure anymore. It is assumption dressed as protocol. The attendant steps closer again, lowering her voice just enough for the woman to hear, but not enough for others to miss the tension. Ma'am, if there's been a booking error, we can sort it out at the desk. It's better not to delay boarding. Delay boarding, as if she is the disruption, as if she is the problem slowing everything down. The woman finally looks toward the gate. Passengers are watching now openly, not intervening, just observing the moment unfold like something mildly uncomfortable on a screen. She turns back to them, still calm, still controlled. I am in my assigned seat, she says simply, no emotion attached to it, just fact. The supervisor does not respond immediately. Instead, he gestures slightly toward the side area near the counter, not forceful, but unmistakable. Let's step aside for a moment, please. It is not optional in tone. The attendant adds quietly, almost as if softening it. We just need to double-check something. But there is nothing soft about what is happening. Because by now the message has already been delivered to everyone watching. She does not belong here, at least that is what they believe. She glances at the direction they are indicating, then back at her boarding pass. A small pause, not confusion, calculation, like she is deciding something that has nothing to do with the ticket anymore. Finally, she moves, not resisting, not arguing, just stepping aside with the same calm pace she entered with. Behind her, the boarding line continues, but slower now. People are watching her instead of moving forward, and no one says it out loud, but the atmosphere has already changed. Because when authority makes a mistake in public, the first thing it protects is not truth. It is itself, and she is now standing inside that mistake. Quiet, composed, unremarkable to everyone except the people who just decided she was, and none of them realize yet they've already started something they will not be able to quietly end. The side area near the boarding counter is not meant for passengers who are simply waiting. It is meant for problems, and now she is standing there. A few meters away, boarding continues. Suitcases roll forward, names are checked. Passengers move toward the aircraft without interruption, except her. The supervisor keeps her boarding pass in his hand longer than necessary, not because he is reading it again, because he is trying to make it fit what he already decided in his mind. The flight attendant stands slightly behind him, arms folded now, professional posture, controlled expression, but her eyes still return to the woman's coat as if it explains everything she thinks she is seeing. The supervisor finally speaks. Your seat assignment shows economy, yes, but there seems to be an inconsistency in the system. The word inconsistency is doing a lot of work. It avoids saying mistake. It avoids saying accusation. It avoids saying assumption. But it still creates distance between her and her seat. The woman looks at him, calm, still. I booked it weeks ago, she says, no extra explanation, no urgency, no defensiveness, just fact placed on the table. The supervisor nods once but does not soften. We understand. Sometimes bookings can be modified or mislinked in the system. A passenger behind them slows slightly, pretending to adjust their bag while listening. Another glances openly now. The situation is no longer private. It has become visible. The attendant leans in slightly. Ma'am, can you confirm the name on your ID matches the booking exactly? The woman reaches into her bag without hesitation. She produces her identification, hands it over, no shaking, no delay. The supervisor compares it with the screen again. His expression does not change much, but something in his eyes does. A pause, longer this time. The system matches perfectly. There is no error. But instead of ending the situation, it tightens it. Because now the problem is no longer technical. It is judgment. The supervisor hands the ID back slowly. Everything appears correct, he admits. The words should resolve it. They do not, because he does not step aside. He does not return her to the boarding line. Instead, he adds, but we still need to ensure this aligns with the assigned cabin manifest. The woman watches him carefully now, not reacting emotionally. Just observing how the explanation keeps shifting. First, inconsistency, Then verification, now manifest alignment. Each step moves the problem further away from resolution and closer to justification. A passenger near the gate speaks quietly to another. Maybe she doesn't belong in this section. It is not said loudly, but it lands heavily. The attendant hears it, and instead of correcting it, she turns back to the woman. Ma'am, if there's been any upgrade or downgrade issue, it's better we clarify before boarding continues. The word downgrade hangs in the air, like an assumption dressed as service. The woman finally glances toward the aircraft door. People are still boarding, still moving forward, without her. The supervisor gestures again, slightly firmer now. We may need you to wait until we confirm with the airline operations desk. Not a request anymore. A delay. A separation. The woman exhales softly, not frustration, just recognition. She steps back half a pace, as if agreeing to the request without agreeing to the reason. That small movement changes the dynamic. To them it looks like compliance. To her it looks like observation. The attendant relaxes slightly, mistaking silence for submission. We'll resolve it quickly, she says, but nothing about it is quick. The supervisor walks a few steps away to make a call. His voice drops, but not enough. Fragments carry back. Boarding issue possible mismatch, passenger not confirmed in expected cabin. Each phrase builds a narrative without her input. The woman stands alone near the counter now, not escorted, not detained, just placed. Passengers continue to glance at her, some curious, some judgmental, some simply relieved it is not them. The attendant checks the boarding flow again, then returns her attention to the woman. Her tone softens, but not her intent. Ma'am, just to avoid confusion at the gate, can you confirm who you booked through? A small question. But it carries a larger implication. Are you sure you belong here at all? The woman looks at her for a moment, then answers quietly. Direct booking. That is all, no elaboration, no justification, and somehow that makes the attendant more unsettled than anything else so far, because nothing about this situation is producing the reaction they expected. No panic, no anger, no confusion. Only control. The supervisor returns. His expression is different now, tighter. Until we verify this with operations, we'll need you to remain here. The words are careful, but the meaning is not. She is not boarding, not yet, possibly not at all. A silence forms between them, not dramatic, not loud, just heavy enough that everyone nearby feels it without understanding why. The woman shifts her grip on her bag slightly, still calm, still composed. But now something changes in how she looks at the gate. Not toward it, through it. Like she is no longer measuring whether she will board, but measuring something far beyond this moment. And in that quiet stillness, the staff make their second mistake. They believe delay is control. They believe procedure is protection. They believe she is simply waiting like everyone else who has ever been questioned. But she is not waiting. She is observing how far they are willing to go before they realize what they are standing next to. And they are already further than they should be. The gate area has changed, not in structure, in atmosphere. What was once routine boarding is now a paused system, passengers flowing around a silent center where everything seems to be held up. She is no longer near the counter. The supervisor has positioned her slightly aside, near a waiting area chair that she has not been asked to sit in, but also not allowed to ignore. That in-between space matters, because it signals uncertainty dressed as procedure. Passengers continue to board in small groups, but their attention keeps drifting back. At first it was curiosity. Now it is interpretation. People are building a story without facts. A woman leans toward her companion. If everything was fine, they wouldn't be checking her like that. Another passenger glances at her bag again, as if it might reveal something invisible. The flight attendant returns briefly to the gate list, then looks back at her. Her expression is still controlled, but less neutral now, more certain, as if the situation has already been decided somewhere above her pay grade. The supervisor steps away again to speak on the phone. This time his tone is lower, faster. Yes, she has a valid ticket, but there is confusion regarding cabin assignment. We need confirmation. He turns slightly away as he speaks. But enough is heard, enough is understood. and misunderstanding fills in the rest. The woman remains still. Hands resting on her bag, not defensive, not restless, just present. That stillness, instead of calming the situation, begins to isolate her further, because in public spaces, calmness without explanation is often misread. A passenger near the front of the line speaks louder this time. Is there a problem with her boarding? It is not addressed to her. It is addressed to staff, and that changes everything. Now it is no longer just a private verification. It is becoming a visible question. The attendant responds quickly. There's a minor clarification being checked. Minor. The word is meant to reduce tension. Instead, it sharpens attention. Because minor delays do not usually remove people from boarding flow. The woman finally shifts her gaze toward the aircraft door again, still open, still boarding, without her. A child nearby looks at her briefly, then at the staff, then back at her. Confused, not judgmental. That moment is brief, but it lands deeper than anything else. The supervisor returns, holding his phone now instead of using it. His expression is more resolved, not certain, but aligned with a decision already forming. He speaks carefully. We've been advised to pause boarding resolution until operations completes verification. He does not say what is being verified, only that it is necessary. The attendant nods immediately, as if this confirms what she already believed. The woman watches both of them, quietly. She is now fully separated from the boarding line, not physically removed, but socially isolated. Passengers are moving past her without interaction. Some glance, some avoid eye contact, some slow down just enough to understand the situation before deciding how to feel about it. And slowly they begin to agree on something unspoken. If staff are uncertain, there must be a reason. That is how public judgment forms, not from truth, from hesitation. The supervisor gestures slightly toward a more distant seating row. Ma'am, for now, please wait there while we finalize confirmation. It is phrased politely, but it is a relocation, a repositioning of her from participant to observer. She looks in the direction indicated, then back at him. Still no resistance, still no emotional shift, just a quiet acknowledgement of the instruction. She moves. And that movement changes how people see her again, because now she is compliant. And compliance in unclear situations is often misread as guilt. A passenger whispers, "If everything was correct, she wouldn't be moved like that." Another nods slightly, as if that makes sense. The attendant hears it but does not correct it. Instead, she focuses on the boarding list again, as if distance will resolve perception. It does not. The woman sits, not fully leaning back, not settled, just placed. Her posture remains straight, composed, unreactive. But her eyes continue to observe everything. The flow of passengers, the rhythm of staff movement, the hesitation in communication, the inconsistency between procedure and behavior. She is not reacting to being excluded. She is recording how it is being done. The supervisor returns to the gate desk and lowers his voice to the attendant. If operations confirms mismatch, we may need to reassign her or deny boarding. Deny boarding. The phrase is said without weight, but it does not land lightly. Not anymore, because it has moved from possibility to direction. The attendant nods again, no longer uncertain, now aligned. The system is beginning to agree with itself even without proof, and that is where public decisions become dangerous, because once a narrative is shared, correction becomes harder than the original mistake. The woman looks toward the aircraft once more, still calm, still quiet, but something subtle shifts in her attention, not outward, inward. Like she is no longer evaluating what is happening to her, but how far it will be allowed to go before it corrects itself. And in that silence, surrounded by movement that no longer includes her, the system begins its next step without realizing it is already being observed by the one person it should not have misjudged. The call from the gate desk is not loud. It does not need to be. Within minutes, a security officer arrives, uniform pressed, expression neutral. Steps measured like someone trained to enter situations without adding emotion to them. But the moment he arrives, the tone of the space changes again. because security presence always rewrites interpretation, even when nothing has been proven. He stops near the supervisor. A brief exchange happens, low voices, clipped sentences. Verification issue, passenger still pending confirmation, request assistance. No accusation is spoken, but the framing is already built. The officer turns toward her. She is still seated in the waiting row, hands resting on her bag, posture unchanged. Calm, the officer looks at her once, then at the supervisor. "Is there a security concern?" he asks. A simple question, but it opens the door to interpretation. The supervisor hesitates. That hesitation becomes the answer. "Not exactly," he says. "It's an unresolved boarding verification." Not exactly, but still enough to justify presence. The officer approaches her slowly, not aggressive, not friendly. Professional distance. "Ma'am," he says, "can I see your documents again?" She nods once, no resistance. She opens her bag and hands them over immediately. That speed matters. It removes one possible reason for suspicion, but not suspicion itself. The officer reviews the documents, longer than necessary, not because they are unclear, but because they are now part of a situation already labeled as uncertain. Behind him, the attendant watches quietly. Her arms are now crossed, not defensively, but decisively, as if the situation has already moved past debate. A passenger nearby whispers, "If security is involved, there must be something wrong." Another nods. No one questions it, because security presence replaces evidence in public perception. The officer finishes reviewing. He looks up. "No immediate issue with documentation," he says. A pause. That should resolve it. It does not, because he adds, "But we'll need to confirm boarding authorization with operations before clearance." The word authorization shifts the meaning again. Not problem, not error, now permission. The woman watches him carefully. Still no reaction, still no escalation, just attention. The supervisor steps closer again. His voice is quieter now, more controlled. "Until we receive confirmation, we cannot allow her to proceed to boarding." Not delay anymore, not pause, cannot allow. The language has tightened. The attendant nods again immediately, as if structure now fully supports interpretation. The officer steps slightly aside and speaks into his radio, short phrases. "Verify passenger status, awaiting ops clearance, possible cabin mismatch." Each phrase moves further away from fact and closer to assumption. The woman remains seated, but now she is no longer just being observed, she is being processed. A passenger walking past slows down, looking at her briefly, then at security, then away. That pattern repeats. Observation, judgment, distance. No one asks her anything directly anymore, because authority has already started speaking on her behalf. The officer returns after a moment. "We are waiting on confirmation," he says, but his stance has changed slightly. Not hostility, but alignment. He is now part of the waiting system, not the questioning one. The supervisor gestures subtly toward her again. "Please remain seated until resolution is complete." Again phrased politely, but functionally restrictive. She nods, still calm. Still contained, but now something is visible in how she observes them. Not anger, not frustration, precision, like she is mapping how many separate decisions have been made about her without her input. The attendant leans slightly toward the supervisor. "If operations confirms mismatch, we should document this immediately and proceed with removal protocol." Removal protocol. The phrase lands differently than the rest, because it assumes outcome, not possibility. The officer hears it but does not correct it. He simply remains in position, waiting. The woman looks toward the gate once more. Passengers continue boarding. Seat numbers are being called. Names are being cleared. Normal flow continues, except she is outside it. And no one in authority is correcting that separation. Instead, they are building structure around it. A structure that becomes harder to undo the longer it stands. The supervisor's phone buzzes. He checks it quickly. His expression tightens slightly, not relief, not confidence, adjustment. He steps away to take the call again. "Yes, still pending, security already involved, awaiting confirmation." He pauses, listens, then nods. "Understood," he returns slowly. The attendant looks at him immediately. What did they say? He hesitates for half a second. That half second matters because it reveals something is shifting. We continue holding until further verification is complete. No resolution. Just continuation. The system has chosen inertia. The woman remains seated, still, quiet, but her attention does not leave them, and in that silence something begins to form not from her actions but from theirs, because now every step they take is building a record, not of her mistake, but of their certainty without proof. And none of them realize yet that certainty is the most fragile thing in an investigation that has not been opened. The waiting area has stopped feeling temporary. It feels assigned, like a place she has been placed into rather than chosen to sit in. The boarding gate continues to operate in the background, but the rhythm has changed around her absence from it. Her name is not being called. Her seat is not being confirmed. Her presence is being paused. The supervisor stands near the counter again, this time with the attendant beside him. The security officer remains a few steps away, maintaining presence without engagement. A triangle of authority. All orbiting the same uncertainty. None of them resolving it. The supervisor speaks quietly into a phone again, short, controlled sentences. Passenger still unverified in final manifest confirmation, security already involved, request operational decision. He listens, longer this time, then nods. Understood. He ends the call and exhales through his nose, not relief, pressure. The attendant steps closer immediately. What did operations say? A pause, not because he does not know. Because he is choosing how to say it. We proceed cautiously, he replies. That is not an answer. It is a direction disguised as uncertainty. The security officer glances over. No clearance yet, he asks. The supervisor shakes his head slightly. Not confirmed for boarding continuation. The wording matters now, not error, not issue, not even delay, no clearance. A negative status created without a charge. The woman is still seated, hands steady on her bag. Eyes moving occasionally between them, then the gate, then the boarding flow. She is not asking questions. She is observing how answers are being constructed without her. A passenger nearby speaks softly to another. If they haven't cleared her, they probably found something. Another responds with a nod. No details are required anymore. The absence of clarity has become its own explanation. The attendant steps forward slightly. Ma'am, she says, voice softer now, almost procedural empathy. For operational reasons, we may need to ask you to step away from the boarding zone entirely. Step away, entirely. The escalation is subtle in phrasing, but final in intent. The woman looks at her, no change in expression, just attention. Where exactly? She asks. It is the first question she has asked in a while, simple, direct. The attendant hesitates, looks to the supervisor. He answers instead. Outside the boarding area. Until verification is complete. Until verification, a process that has no visible end. The security officer shifts slightly, not moving toward her, but aligning closer to the exit path. The implication forms quietly. This is no longer about clarification. It is about removal from system flow. The woman slowly stands, not rushed, not resistant, just standing. That movement draws attention immediately. Passengers notice. Staff notice. Because movement now signals compliance with a decision that has not been fully stated aloud. She adjusts her bag strap calmly. The supervisor gestures toward the exit direction. Please come with us for now. Not you must. Not you are required. But the structure of it no longer needs forceful language. The woman begins walking, one step, then another. The security officer follows at a controlled distance. The attendant walks slightly ahead, guiding without touching. The supervisor remains behind, already speaking into his phone again. Yes, we are moving passenger from boarding zone pending resolution. They pass the gate threshold. And immediately the sound of boarding changes behind them. They are outside it now, separated. The corridor is quieter, more sterile, less public, but still visible enough for passing travelers to notice the movement of an escorted passenger. A few eyes follow, then look away, because attention without understanding is uncomfortable. The attendant speaks again, softer now. Once operations confirms, we'll be able to reinstate your boarding if everything aligns. If everything aligns, a conditional restoration, as if access was never a right, only a permission temporarily withheld. The woman stops briefly, not abruptly, just enough to make them pause too. She turns slightly toward the supervisor. "You are removing me from boarding," she says calmly. Not a question, a statement for confirmation. The supervisor hesitates, then answers carefully. "We are pausing your boarding clearance until verification is complete." Pausing, still avoiding the word that already exists in function, removal. The security officer remains silent. The attendant looks away briefly, because the phrasing no longer matches the action, and everyone in that corridor feels it, even if no one says it. The woman nods once, acknowledging, not agreeing, then continues walking. No resistance, no argument. But now something changes in how the staff move behind her. Because calm acceptance does not always signal defeat. Sometimes it signals observation, and they do not yet understand which one they are dealing with. As they approach the secondary security area, the supervisor receives another message. He reads it quickly. His expression tightens again. This time not confusion, concern. He slows slightly, then looks at the security officer. "We may need to escalate this to operations lead review," he says quietly. The officer raises an eyebrow. "On what basis?" The supervisor pauses, a moment too long, then replies, "Standard protocol due to unresolved status and escalation flag." But there is no clear flag, no documented issue that anyone has articulated out loud, only a chain of decisions reinforcing itself. The woman continues walking ahead of them, still composed, still silent. But now fully aware that something simple has already become something procedural. And procedural things do not end with apologies. They end with consequences, just not always for the right person. The secondary security corridor is quieter than the gate. No boarding announcements, no rolling luggage, just controlled movement and controlled silence. Every sound feels deliberate here. The woman walks ahead, still escorted at a careful distance, not restrained, not hurried, but unmistakably contained within procedure. Behind her, the supervisor speaks in short bursts on his phone again. "We've moved her off boarding zone, awaiting ops lead confirmation." The words sound increasingly disconnected from what is physically happening, because she is not being held for clarification. She is being removed from participation. The security officer keeps pace, neutral expression unchanged, but his attention is no longer casual. It is structured now, like he is tracking a situation that has passed initial assessment. The attendant walks slightly ahead, guiding the direction, occasionally glancing back, not at the woman's behavior, but at whether she is complying. She is, completely. No hesitation, no resistance. And that is what begins to feel unusual. They pass a checkpoint. A staff member at the desk looks up briefly, sees the escort, looks away. No questions asked. That silence from others reinforces the system's direction more than any instruction could. They stop near a waiting, partitioned area. Not a holding room, not officially restricted, just separated space. The supervisor gestures lightly. "Please wait here while operations completes review." The woman stops. She places her bag down beside her, carefully, not as someone settling in, as someone acknowledging placement. Then she stands again, not sitting. That detail is small, but noticeable. The attendant observes it. "You can sit if you like," she offers. The woman looks at the chair, then replies simply, "I'm fine." No emotion attached, no discomfort expressed, just refusal of unnecessary compliance. A silence follows. The security officer adjusts his stance slightly. Something about her behavior is not escalating anything. It is stabilizing it, which in uncertain procedures is more unsettling than resistance. The supervisor steps a few meters away to continue calls. Still no final clearance. Yes, security already involved. Passenger remains non-verified in boarding context. The phrasing is repeating itself now, like a loop building its own authority. The attendant checks the gate system on her device. then glances at the woman again. For the first time, uncertainty appears in her expression, not about the process, but about the lack of emotional response. She tries again. "Ma'am, do you have anyone traveling with you today?" The question is softer. Less procedural, more probing. The woman pauses briefly, then answers, "No." A simple answer, but it closes the conversation instead of opening it. The attendant nods, unsure how to interpret it. Passengers under stress usually explain more, not less. The supervisor returns. His expression is different now, less confident, more constrained. He speaks quietly to the security officer. Operations is requesting further confirmation from airline compliance before release or denial. The officer frowns slightly. "That's not security jurisdiction anymore," he replies. The supervisor nods. "I know." That "I know" carries weight because it means control has already moved elsewhere. The woman watches this exchange carefully, still silent, still, but her gaze moves slightly, tracking structure rather than individuals. The attendant notices something else now. The woman has not once asked to board, not once asked to explain, not once asked to escalate, only observed. That observation begins to feel intentional. The supervisor receives another message. He reads it, then pauses longer than before. The attendant notices immediately. "What is it?" He hesitates, then replies, "Operations is flagging the situation for senior review due to inconsistency in handling." A new phrase enters the system. Inconsistency, not of the passenger, of the handling. That changes everything slightly, because now attention is no longer only on her. It is beginning to turn inward. The security officer shifts his weight. "Senior review for a boarding dispute?" he asks. The supervisor does not answer directly. Instead, "They want full documentation trail." The woman finally moves, not forward, not toward exit, just a small adjustment of stance. Her bag strap is repositioned. A simple motion, but now all three staff members notice it, because it is the first visible sign of preparation. Not panic, not confusion, preparation. The attendant speaks carefully. "Ma'am, if you have any proof of booking confirmation or correspondence, now would be the time to share it so we can resolve this quickly." There is urgency in her tone now, not because she is impatient, but because delay is no longer neutral. The woman looks at her, then answers softly, "I already provided it." No repetition, no escalation, just fact. The supervisor looks down at his phone again. Something has changed in his posture, less control, more awareness of consequence. He steps slightly aside and lowers his voice. "Yes, we have documentation, but handling has been escalated internally." The security officer looks between them. "This is no longer a security matter," he says quietly. "It is not a complaint. It is recognition." The attendant exhales subtly. For the first time, uncertainty is not just procedural, it is structural. The woman remains still, watching them, not as someone waiting to be cleared, but as someone now fully aware of how far the process has already moved without her. And yet, she has not once raised her voice, not once corrected them forcefully, not once attempted to override their assumptions, because in this space she does not need to argue, and that is what begins to unsettle them most. Not what she is saying, but what she is choosing not to say. And somewhere beyond this corridor, a decision chain is already forming that none of them in this room fully control anymore. The corridor is no longer just a holding space. It is becoming a waiting point inside a larger system. Phones are no longer just being used for updates. They are becoming channels of correction. The supervisor stands slightly apart now, facing the wall with his phone pressed closer to his ear. His voice is lower than before, but more precise. "Yes, passenger moved from boarding zone, security involved, awaiting senior review." A pause, longer than usual, then his posture changes slightly. "You're saying she is listed in compliance-linked verification queue?" He listens, does not interrupt. And for the first time since this began, he does not immediately respond. The attendant notices, so does the security officer. Even the woman notices the shift in silence. The supervisor lowers the phone slightly, then raises it again. "Understood, I will review the file immediately." He ends the call, but he does not return to them immediately. That delay matters. Because delays inside authority systems are rarely neutral. They mean something has appeared that does not match the current story. He finally turns back. His expression is different now, not confident, not dismissive, careful. The attendant steps closer immediately. "What did operations say?" He hesitates, then answers. Her name is appearing in a secondary compliance-linked verification list. The words land differently now, not accusation, not suspicion, verification list. Security officer reacts first. "That's internal airline compliance?" he asks. The supervisor nods once. "Yes." A pause, the attendant frowns, "but that wasn't in the boarding manifest review." "No," the supervisor replies, another pause, then he adds, "It's not part of standard passenger processing." That sentence changes the atmosphere because it means the system they were using to interpret her situation was incomplete. The woman remains still, but her eyes shift slightly, not surprised. Just attentive, like she is watching the moment the structure begins to recognize itself. The attendant looks toward her again, but this time her expression is no longer certain. It is recalibrating. "Ma'am," she starts, then stops. She tries again. "Do you work with aviation operations in any capacity?" The question is careful now, not accusatory, reconstructive. The woman answers simply, "I travel often." That is all, no elaboration, no defense. The supervisor steps closer to the screen on his phone again. He scrolls. His expression tightens, then softens slightly, not relief, recognition. He looks up. "There is a note attached," he says quietly. The security officer steps closer. "What kind of note?" The supervisor reads. "Flagged under operational compliance observation, non-passenger risk classification clearance required before denial actions." Silence. It is not loud, but it is absolute. The attendant's arms drop slightly from their folded position. The structure of what they thought they were managing begins to shift under them. Because non-passenger risk classification clearance does not match a simple boarding discrepancy. The security officer speaks first. "This should have been escalated before removal from boarding flow." The supervisor nods slowly. "I agree." That agreement is not casual. It is procedural acknowledgement of deviation. The woman watches them all now, still calm, still composed, but now she is no longer just the subject of their interpretation. She is becoming the reference point of their correction. The attendant takes a small step back. For the first time, her voice is uncertain. "So, what happens now?" The supervisor does not answer immediately. He looks at the phone again, then responds carefully. "We wait for compliance lead authorization." Another shift, not resolution, escalation upward. The security officer exhales through his nose. "This is no longer a gate issue," he says quietly. "No," the supervisor agrees. "It never was." That sentence lands heavily because it reframes everything that happened before it. The questioning, the relocation, the security presence, all of it now feels misapplied in hindsight. The attendant looks down briefly, then back at the woman. Her tone is softer now, almost hesitant. "We apologize for the inconvenience," she says, but even as she says it, she knows it is incomplete. Because inconvenience is not what this has become. The woman looks at her, no judgment, no acceptance, just acknowledgement, and that is more unsettling than anger. The supervisor receives another notification. He reads it, then goes still. The security officer notices immediately. "What now?" The supervisor replies slowly. "Compliance lead is joining review." A new presence enters the system without entering the room. Everything shifts again. The woman adjusts her bag strap once more. Small movement, controlled. But now all three of them notice it with a different awareness, because it no longer feels like waiting, it feels like positioning. The attendant glances at the supervisor. His expression confirms what she is beginning to understand. They are no longer in control of interpretation. They are now waiting for interpretation to be delivered to them. And the woman, still silent, still calm, is no longer being evaluated as a passenger. She is being reviewed by a system that has finally started asking why she was ever questioned at all. The corridor feels smaller now, not physically, but in pressure. Like the walls have not changed, but the number of eyes behind the system has increased. The supervisor is no longer speaking casually into his phone. He is standing still, listening more than talking. Yes, I'm on the line with compliance lead now. A pause, longer than any before it. Then his expression tightens. Confirmed. I'm forwarding the file. The attendant watches him carefully. The security officer no longer moves at all. His posture is fixed, neutral, but fully attentive. The woman remains in the same position she has been in for most of this sequence. Still, controlled, present, not reacting to urgency around her. The supervisor lowers the phone slightly, then speaks carefully, almost cautiously now. Compliance lead is reviewing the case in real time. The attendant nods quickly. What does that mean for boarding? He does not answer immediately, because the answer is no longer simple. Instead, he says, it means we wait for directive. The word directive replaces decision, and that changes the tone completely, because decisions can be questioned, directives cannot. The security officer steps slightly closer to the supervisor. Is this escalation normal for a boarding verification issue? He asks. The supervisor hesitates, then replies honestly, no. A pause. Then he adds, it is not being treated as a boarding issue anymore. The attendant looks between them. Then what is it being treated as? No one answers immediately, because the system is now speaking above their level of access. The supervisor's phone vibrates again. He looks at it. His expression changes subtly, not shock, containment. He turns the screen slightly toward the others. A message header is visible. Compliance review, priority channel, no further explanation needed. The attendant's breathing slows slightly. The security officer shifts his stance. The woman watches the phone, not the people, the phone, as if that is where the real change is happening. The supervisor reads quietly. This passenger is listed under operational oversight linkage. Any boarding denial or removal must be suspended pending verification confirmation. Silence. The attendant's mouth opens slightly, then closes again. The security officer speaks first. So the removal protocol is invalidated. The supervisor nods slowly. Yes. A pause, then he adds, effective immediately. That sentence changes the direction of everything that has happened so far because it does not correct the situation. It reverses authority over it. The attendant looks down for a moment, then back at the woman. Her voice is softer now. We were told to relocate you due to pending clearance. She stops, because she realizes what she is saying no longer aligns with current instructions. The woman finally speaks quietly, not confrontational, not emotional, just precise. You acted before confirmation. It is not a question, it is a statement of fact. The supervisor nods once. We did. No defense, no justification, just acknowledgement. The security officer steps back slightly. His role in the situation is dissolving in real time because there is no longer a security issue. The attendant looks unsettled now, not by the woman, by the structure collapsing under itself. The supervisor's phone rings again immediately. He answers, listens. His posture changes again, straighter, more formal. Yes, I understand. A pause, then I will comply. He lowers the phone slowly, and for the first time he does not give an instruction to anyone in the room. Instead, he says, boarding restriction is officially lifted. The attendant exhales quietly. The security officer steps back fully now. The system that placed him here has retracted its claim, but nothing about the moment feels like victory. Only correction, slow, delayed, incomplete. The woman remains still, no reaction, no visible shift in emotion, just presence. The attendant takes a small step forward. Ma'am, your boarding may resume. A pause. Then she adds, carefully, we apologize for the inconvenience caused during verification. The word inconvenience feels too small now. But it is all the system has language for in moments like this. The supervisor looks at the woman directly for the first time without procedural framing, not suspicion, not evaluation, just awareness. There is something different in his expression now, not fear, not relief, recognition that the situation was always above their understanding. The woman adjusts her bag once, then looks toward the gate again. The boarding flow is still happening, still moving, as if nothing changed. But everyone here knows something did. The attendant steps aside slightly, allowing space, not permission, correction. The woman does not rush, does not speak further. She simply begins walking forward again, and this time no one stops her, not because she demanded it, but because the system finally learned what it had been misreading from the start. Silence was not absence, it was control. The boarding gate resumes its rhythm, but it no longer feels unchanged. It feels corrected, subtly, quietly, like something has been adjusted in the background that passengers will never be told about, but staff will not forget. She walks through the boarding lane now. No escort, no security presence, no supervisor leading the way. Only space opening ahead of her as the system recalibrates itself around a decision that has already been reversed. The attendant steps aside fully, holding the boarding scanner at a lower angle than before, not out of formality, out of caution. "Welcome aboard," she says. The words are standard, but they carry weight now. Different from earlier, the woman gives a slight nod, nothing more, no expression of satisfaction, no acknowledgement of resolution, just continuation. She steps into the aircraft. The cabin is mid-boarding. Passengers are settling in. Bags are being placed overhead. Seat numbers are being checked again. Normal movement resumes around her as if the earlier disruption is being mentally filed away by everyone who witnessed it. But memory does not delete easily in public spaces. She walks down the aisle calmly. Seat numbers are visible now. She stops at her assigned row. Economy, correct, undisputed. She places her bag in the overhead compartment without assistance. Then sits. No dramatic pause, no final look back, just settling into place. A few passengers nearby glance at her briefly, not with suspicion now, with recalibration, trying to understand what just shifted. Across the cabin, a flight attendant at the front receives a quiet message on her device. Her expression changes slightly, then resets, professional again, but different. Behind the scenes in the airport operations system, several updates are already being logged, not visible to passengers, not announced, but active. A supervisor, no longer in the gate area, stands in a separate operations corridor reviewing a file on a screen. Another staff member beside him speaks quietly. "Compliance flagged improper escalation path." He nods. "And the removal attempt, documented as procedural deviation." No emotion, just record-keeping. He exhales slowly. "Who authorized initial restriction?" The other staff member pauses. "Gate supervisor initiated based on boarding mismatch assumption." Another silence. Then, was there evidence? No verified discrepancy. The supervisor looks at the screen for a long moment, then closes the file slightly. "Prepare incident review documentation." Not punishment, not drama, just process. Elsewhere in the airport, the gate supervisor who initially handled the situation stands alone near a counter, no longer actively managing boarding. His phone is silent now. No more escalation calls, only internal notifications marked as reviewed. The attendant from earlier is also no longer at the gate position. She is standing slightly aside, watching boarding continue without interruption. But her posture is different now. Less certain, more reflective, because she understands what happened was not a passenger issue. It was a system misread that escalated too quickly to reverse cleanly. Inside the aircraft, she remains seated, calm, still. Passengers around her are now fully in motion again. A man across the aisle adjusts his seatbelt. A woman opens a magazine. A child kicks lightly against a tray table. Life resumes, but something subtle remains changed in perception. Not toward her anymore, toward authority, because people saw how quickly certainty formed and how quietly it collapsed. The aircraft doors begin final preparation. Announcements resume. Standard safety instructions begin. Everything returns to operational normality. But beneath that normality, corrections have already started. Escalation procedure flagged verification protocol bypass reviewed unauthorized removal attempt documented staff handling under compliance audit note added none of it is visible to passengers. None of it is spoken aloud, but it exists. The woman looks forward. No expression of triumph, no reflection of conflict, just presence in a seat that was never actually in question. The plane door closes with a soft mechanical sound. Locked, final, the cabin pressurizes into routine, and the aircraft begins to move. Outside, the airport continues as if nothing happened. But internally, the record has changed. Not because she demanded it, not because she fought for it, but because the system finally corrected itself after acting too early. And those who made the decision will not forget the silence of how it ended. Because consequences in places like this do not always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive as paperwork. And permanent awareness.